I'm Remy, I'm 23, and I'm a queer and trans academic and activist in Minneapolis. I love being trans for all the amazing things that I have learned about myself along the way. So I'd like to kind of riff here a little bit on a speech, whatever you'd like to, or as Z would like to call it, from S. Bear Bergman. It's called Sing If You're Glad to Be Trans. And maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't, but in it, Bear goes off on a long, sort of beautiful list of all the things that are really great and beneficial about being trans, even in a really cisgenderist or cis-sexist world. Being trans makes life interesting, even when it's hard. Being trans has also taught me to try to meet my family, my friends, a random person I meet in class or on the street, to find the right words to talk to them about trans identity if and when it comes up. Talking about my trans identity has given me a better relationship with my mom than ever before. It wasn't always easy. I didn't always feel like I was going to be accepted or honored. But now I feel like at the very least I'm heard. That I don't have to hide parts of myself from my mom, and there aren't other parts that I would want to hide because I've put the biggest thing to me out there already, and we're gonna work through it together. Through being trans, I've learned a community united around struggle, marginalization, but also intense celebration, pride, liberation. We have it together in trans communities that include trans and gender non-conforming folks and partners and family and allies of all sorts. We've got the fiercest sense of community I've ever seen. One thing that I take pretty directly from Bear is that I love so hard me what my body's like and what my body does like and what I want to get out of it. What kind of sex I want to have. I have learned so much about the sexual acts in which I want to engage by virtue of having to make tough decisions about my body, what I want to do with it, and what I want to do to it. To the same token, I've learned a whole lot about everyone's bodies, you know? I've learned a lot about consent and questions and self-determination and the ways that all our bodies are different. So if I'm in a sexual situation with someone, I know how to negotiate what my body wants and needs, and I know how to ask what your body wants and needs too, and it doesn't have to be uncomfortable. Our bodies are simply unique beasts, and we should talk about what they need and want, what feels best, what feels worst, what's off limits. I am 1,000 times more comfortable with that coming into my trans identity than I ever could have been before. Beyond just sex, being trans has taught me that I have to come to terms with this body and love it for what it is at every moment. And that means both before I started using testosterone, after I started using testosterone, before I had chest surgery, after I had chest surgery, every time it was painful physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, all of that made me really come to terms with this body, be able to look at it in the mirror and recognize that it's what I have to work with to move through this world. We've got to have a good relationship. This one's all I've got. Loving your trans identity and body is a radical act. I really like being trans because it's part of how and why I get to teach and educate a whole lot of people in a whole lot of different settings. It may not be everybody's story, but I'm also really glad to be trans because of all the ways it's taught me that I don't have to live up to anybody's gendered expectations. That I don't have to be a woman, and I don't have to be a man either. And I don't have to buy into any bullshit about what a man or woman should do, because I don't need to be either of those things in some strict, confining sense. I will always be proud of the fact that although I have a masculine voice, and I don't want to take up too much space in a room with my masculinity, being trans has taught me to speak truth to power, to put the words out in a room that need to be there, that need to be made visible. I know that as a trans person, I have a voice that dominant society says shouldn't be heard, and damn it, I'm gonna make it heard anyway. I love being a visible trans person who knows that there is no one way to be trans, but instead many options, because I get to put that out there for a whole lot of other folks to see. And I get to engage in conversation, a lot of folks working at questioning their own gender or coming into a trans identity. For me, That's what trans identity is about. It's not about taking myself from a pre-cut mode of girlhood and womanhood into some other mold of boyhood, manhood. No, it's about finding the pieces that work for me and rejecting what doesn't. Being trans teaches me to value self-determination above all else, and that goes for both of us. I have so much more respect for you now than I ever did before I could struggle through this trans identity. I get to surprise people, make them think harder, make them question what they think is reality. I get to think really hard through everything I like and don't like, the clothes I wear, the foods I eat, all of these gendered products that are sold to us in every store. I get to think really critically about which ones are right for me, and they're not always on one side of the gender divide. I'm glad that being trans makes me a passionate person. I have things to care about, and they're not over once I've used hormones for so long or once I've had whatever surgery. They're not over because we're all in this struggle together. I love being trans because I'm really sexy. I love being trans because even when life is hard, I know that I'm making choices for myself. I love being trans because transgression and subversion are where it's at. What the hell is normal? I love being trans because I'm not fucking normal, and I don't give a fuck about normal. I get to meet some of the bravest and toughest people in the world, and they get to be my best friends and my coworkers, my colleagues, my fellow activists. I love myself because first and foremost, that's my job and not anybody else's. Loving this trans identity and body is a radical act. I think your trans identity and body are acts of radical love too. Take this love and build on it. And friends, trans folks and allies alike, we can change the world together. Let's start a gender revolution.